there is the Yelp alternative killer also.
You gotta be Kelsey.
I am, yeah.
I'll figure out.
I'm trying to listen so you don't have to explain as well.
That's our email list. That's the petition.
How's it going?
Yeah.
No one ever seems
So yeah, I just want to start off by saying thank you to Free Range Brewing for having us here and letting us screen this amazing, beautiful pastoral film that we just saw. So thank you, Free Range. Thank you. I also want to say thanks to Kelsey, who's actually one of our panelists in the Humane League, for bringing this film to town. So this is, I believe, the first showing in North Carolina. Second showing in North Carolina. And it's a beautiful and unique film, and I think it kind of adds a layer to the discussion that we're having about animal rights right now that's just beautiful and filmic and artful, and I'm really glad that we got to see it today. So just to remind everybody about how this will work, so we're basically going to have a short discussion, 25 to 30 minutes, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions. My name is Julia Simon. I own a company called Nourish here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're about 6 years old, employ about 17 people, and we do beautiful, healthy vegan meals delivered all over town, and we also ship across the state. A little bit about me, also, I've been an ethical vegetarian since I was 13, and then kind of slowly transitioned into veganism. It's definitely about the animals for me. I can remember, many things that this film brought up, but I can remember my father was a fisherman, and I just could never go with him. It just never made sense to me. So definitely animals first, and then the beautiful health benefits and the environmental impact piece as well. But yeah, so to my left, I have Gaurav. This is Kelsey, Brandon, and then we have Josh from Cotton Branch Sanctuary joining us last minute. Thank you so much, Josh. So I'll let you guys take a few minutes to introduce yourself before we dive in on questions, so please start.
Thank you. I've been vegetarian for about 10 years. I'm a physician, and I look at it a lot from a healthcare perspective, but also from a personal perspective. I'm a trauma surgeon. I see a lot of violence, and I operate on people, and so that's kind of what I bring to the game as far as the discussion is concerned.
And I am Kelsey Joseph. I am the Charlotte Grassroots Coordinator for the Humane League. So I see a lot of very familiar faces out there. I obviously come at this from an animal welfare perspective, but I think that every single person up here has a really valuable insight as to why this issue is important. So I hope that you will gain a lot from listening to them tonight.
Yes. Excellent. My name is Brandon Jones. I'm the Director of Technical Programs at the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation. So we're a nonprofit advocacy group that focuses on water quality in this area. So my background is in environmental science, and a lot of my work is going out and educating the public on local water quality and environmental issues.
Hi, my name is Josh Carpenter Costner, and I am a director at Cotton Branch Farm Animal Sanctuary. We're located in Leesville, South Carolina, about an hour and a half south of Charlotte. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Sorry. About an hour and a half south of Charlotte. And sorry. Also, I own a salon here in Charlotte. That is my paying gig, as I like to say. And definitely, it was an ethical issue for me. I'm an ethical vegan. Started vegetarian initially. That was 15 years ago. And then, one thing, not to talk too much, but one thing was dairy for me was difficult to give up, and one of the reasons was I didn't want to ask or know what was going on with dairy. It was obvious what was going on with meat, and it was an easy decision to give that up. But dairy for me was more difficult, and so that came right at 5 years ago, and it was basically when I allowed myself to start asking questions and start researching and start watching videos and understanding what free range and free roaming meant and, well, what it really didn't mean. because I pictured the happy cows in the fields and the free roaming chickens that were just, roaming around hundreds of acres. And it's a myth and it doesn't exist. So
That's true.
once I actually had to look at that, I couldn't touch dairy again. So that is why I'm an ethical vegan, not just an ethical vegetarian anymore.
Right. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So this idea, right? It's basically branding, right? And this is kind of a question directed to you, Kelsey. We hear a lot about this discussion about humane meat, right? And free-range farming and these things. I mean, here we are in this brewery that's kind of named after that, right? And I feel like, Bob's Pigs, this movie basically is the story of humane meat, right? These are pigs that are happy pigs, happy meat, as he says, and he basically, they live this life that's as close to a natural life as they possibly can, and then on day 7 it's slaughterhouse day, right? So I guess, what do you think, Kelsey, is this film trying to say about the concept of humane meat? Is it trying to demystify it a little bit? Is it calling it out? What do you think it's saying about that?
Yeah, so I think that is a really good question, right? That a lot of us in this room probably have. And I think that's one of the main things that the Humane League focuses on, right? Is incremental change. So we see that Bob Comus, this farmer, he starts raising pigs this way because he wants to offer people an alternative to factory farmed meat. And then as he raises them, he realizes, he says in the film, I look into their eyes, and when I look into an animal's eyes, I see that there's someone there. And so then he transitions, after this long, grueling process and this internal dialogue that he has with himself throughout this last year of farming pigs, and he realizes, I can't do this anymore. And so ultimately, that's why the Humane League focuses on the welfare campaigns that we do, is because, we ultimately are a vegan organization, but if we can reduce the most amount of suffering for the most amount of animals. So if we can take millions of chickens on factory farms, and let's say on a scale of 0 to 10, those chickens are living a 0, right? Like the absolute worst, they're living in the absolute worst cruelty that you could imagine. If we can take the lives of those animals and take them from a 0 to a 5, then in our eyes, that's worth it to make their lives that much better. With the hopes that, and the knowledge that it raises consumer awareness, and then people are able to start looking into these issues further and thinking, are my values aligning with my actions, and should I be eating meat in the first place?
Yeah, and I think you guys do a really good job of that, sort of bringing up the bar. And it's not just making sure that these animals suffer less, it's beginning the conversation that people have and the thought process that people have about their food, And especially, when I was younger and we were very poor and it was just, you just ate what was on your plate, you didn't ask questions. If dad brought it in, that's what we were eating. And as we become adults and really become more invested in our personal philosophies and learn who we are and how we'd like to be in the world, asking those questions is key. And every time somebody asks where their food came from, they get closer to sort of relating in a being-like way to what the sources of their food are. And I think you guys do a very good job of that. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to that?
I think it's awesome that there are a lot of people here who are not vegetarians, and we're having some incremental change just through our support network system. And I just wanted to take just a second to thank everybody who has had a slight opening of their mind to be here and be present with us. And thank you for being here.
Julia, if I may, something I kind of said to you earlier, I thought I was going to be bawling during this whole film, and just from watching the trailer, because the trailer packed everything into this short little 2-minute trailer, and it was difficult for me to watch, so I was even nervous coming to see this. And for those who don't know, we have 200 animals at Cotton Branch, 85 of whom are pigs. So the way that my husband Evan and I got involved in this, in rescue work at all, and in sanctuary work at all, was a pig. And our first pig, Oliver, who came along 6 years ago. And so...
Josh, can you tell them why you have a lot of the pigs that you have at the sanctuary?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So pigs are really special to us, and the reason we have a lot of them, they're 2 separate types, basically, that we have. And we have the pet pigs, and we have the farm pigs. And farm pigs are coming from slaughter situations, 4-H clubs, hoarding situations, training hunting dogs, being used to train hunting dogs. Many of them are injured and used for that. And then 98% at least of the requests that we get, and we get at least one contact per day on average, 98 to 99% of them are, please take my teacup potbelly pig who no longer weighs 25 pounds, they're 125 pounds. They don't exist, people. If anyone tells you they exist, they don't exist. A miniature pig is 80 to 150 pounds. That is miniature. Kind of like a miniature horse is miniature compared to a horse. A farm pig is 600 pounds easy, 800 to 1,000 pounds is not abnormal. But one of the biggest takeaways from this movie, as I was watching and what I was sharing with Julia, is, you know, when we see these pigs being taken away a lot of times in the videos on the trucks and they're freaking out, you hear about them jumping out of the trucks because they know they're going to slaughter and they know they're dying and they're coming from factory farms. Something that hit me is even worse in this film, portraying an organic, humane farm, is working with pigs on a daily basis. These pigs trusted this man implicitly. They have the intelligence of a 3 to 4 year old human child. You can Google this if you'd like. They are like a cat mixed with a dog, mixed with a toddler. This is what it's like living with them on a daily basis. And you do look into their eyes, and it is like looking into a human child's eyes. And they trusted this man implicitly. You didn't see them fight him to get into the trailer. They rode calmly in that trailer. And even that shot of the 4 pigs that were being taken away one by one in that slaughter scene, that last pig was laying there comfortably waiting for them to come get him because he had no idea what was coming his way because he trusted this man.
Because he trusted.
And for me, that hit me worse than anything in this film.
Right, so it's a huge part of humane meat, basically, is making
Yes.
them more comfortable and making them less scared, but the results are the exact same.
Exactly.
So when I saw this movie on Sunday as a preview to coming year, I thought it would have a little bit of a backlash because the pigs look like they're so compassionately treated, and a lot of people who are, I think they are very compassionately treated in this movie. A lot of people have that image when they eat meat to say, you know, the pigs are raised on a nice farm, the farmers take very nice, good care of them.
Birds are chirping, the sun is shining.
It's fine. And you know, this is like, that's right, it confirms what I already know. But the good thing about this movie, very visual way, it shows you the humanity in those pigs a little bit and how you relate them very much, how they're kind of placed next to the dog. And I think it does a really good job of, you know, first making it look like everything is nice and happy and the pigs are happy, and then it really, I think it's a good thought-provoking film for people who do eat meat, and it kind of confirms for vegetarians what we already think.
Right.
But
There's no
again,
way to humanely slaughter something.
it's great to have this incremental change, and that's what I appreciated the most about this
I
movie,
agree.
this film.
Yeah, and I think just to add a little piece to that. So I'm involved in a number of chef organizations in Charlotte as a chef, and this is definitely where we're headed, right? So if you are a purveyor of meat of any kind, you are seeking out and searching for humane meat. That's the big shift. And I think that's a healthy shift, just like, you know, you guys believe at the Humane League, you want to take incremental steps and decrease suffering overall. But I do think it's really important to know, admit, and discuss that at the end of the day, they're going to the slaughterhouse same as other animals, for sure. I had a question for you. So you're a trauma surgeon, you're an MD, right? You're a proponent of the plant-based diet for a multitude of reasons, I'm sure. So as we see vegan culture bloom, and as we see, something interesting about this film to me is how artistic and beautiful and quiet and not preachy it is, right? It's just basically an objective piece about a man and his life and his epiphany. Are you getting less pushback when you suggest a plant-based diet to people as like a way to better their lives, better their health? Are things gradually shifting for you as a doctor?
Little bit. Incrementally so,
Hoping
yes.
for yes.
Yes. I mean, you know, it just in healthcare, there's things move slowly. People still smoke, we still drink, people are still having heart attacks and accidents, and even physicians are humans also. It's not like they have this great knowledge that the rest of us can't get on a Google MD. And so, you know, even my colleagues who are physicians. I was trying to get a lot of them to come here who are, and the joke was the last bacon or the last this or smoke. There are a lot of jokes that even physicians are very resistant to the idea of a plant-based diet. But, it's slowly changing, and, more and more younger people, our age group, are coming to the table with this momentum. And, just like anything, if you go back 50 years, you'll see advertisements with physicians smoking cigarettes and saying, Camels are the best cigarettes for my asthma. And, we have to change everybody. So I think there's a lot of evidence out there as far as research and literature that shows, yes, a plant-based diet is healthier for you, and, a meat-based diet, shorter lifespan, more heart attacks, more heart disease, more cancer, everything. And so if you're looking at it from a non-animal welfare standpoint and just from me, selfish, what's in it for me, the evidence is there also that says, and as our population is getting more educated and our young folks are getting more into health and exercise, people are figuring it out, that yes, this is healthier. And so I am seeing change. No, I'm not an expert in nutrition. I'm not an expert in making change. I'm not a cardiologist or things like that about promoting weight loss and things like that. But when we do have patients who are in traumatic injuries or in the intensive care unit or malnourished, or we're trying to get them off IV nutrition, I will put the plug in for a plant-based diet, not as a bias of my own to push my own agenda, but just to show the evidence out there that says, yes, this is better for you,
Absolutely.
It's healthier for you,
Yeah.
and so, yes.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot more. We've had a really interesting couple of years because we get, here we are in the barbecue belt, right? And so we occasionally get a customer who's basically spent 50 years of their life eating the standard American diet as it pertains to the South, and a lot of pork and a lot of these high cholesterol meats. And so it's one of my favorite parts of my job to be able to just turn it around. In 3 weeks, their cholesterol drops by 100%. They feel light, they feel alive. There's a certain kind of lethargy that leaves them. And so it's just amazing to be able to talk to some of these customers that they're brave enough to try, and then everything starts shifting for them. It's an amazing diet.
We all look to physicians, say, what's the best thing to eat? What can we do? It's an authority figure. Do you find that physicians are more or less resistant to change? Are they just other people and they look at this as skeptical as everybody else, or do you think there is some extra resistance?
I don't think it's an extra resistance. I think, I just look at my colleagues, and a lot of, physicians and attorneys, they are, there's a higher incidence of alcohol and, suicide and things like that. There's just a component in physicians and attorneys that they're just hardcore about a lot of things. And so a lot of my colleagues are also hardcore about a lot of things, and a lot of things people are resistant to change. The evidence argues against that, but we have to remember that we're in a culture. It's not just a matter of black and white, right or wrong. We're inculcated with all this information from childhood, and it's a part of our culture. We sit at family gatherings and cooking together, and there's a smoker, and father is teaching son how to cook a ham and brisket, and there's a lot of things that go into it. And it's really hard to disconnect that from the evidence that you see in front of you and the research and the literature. And again, I'm not an expert at vegetarian type literature or research, but I have some inclination of that. But yes, physicians are just like, we're all human. They drink, they do drugs, they get in accidents, they abuse everybody. We've all got our fallacies. Not that eating meat is in that same category, but I would say, there's resistance in everything. I mean, even physicians, I like to use smoking as an example. I know physicians currently that are excellent surgeons, excellent doctors, still smoking.
Outside the emergency room door.
Tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, how much? So I think there's
Yeah.
a component of building the momentum as a community, and how many physicians smoked 50 years ago is much lesser than how many physicians smoke now. And so I think it's not just physicians. I think the whole population, the whole culture has to change a little bit from a public health standpoint. And I think, once we gather that type of momentum and incremental changes, I think it-
Practical
big
paradigm
impact.
shifts.
I like that, incremental changes.
And Brandon, I think we'll move on, and I have a question for you. So you work with the Catawba Riverkeepers Foundation, and you guys, you do many things, but mainly what you are for is to protect our watersheds from pollution, man-made pollution specifically, or pollution of any type.
By definition, pollution is man-made,
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have some invasive species, but even that it's us.
Okay. And so would you say that, I guess I thought it might be interesting for the audience to know a little bit about what factory farming does to water. I mean, I think there's a lot of data out there, but we're in North Carolina where we're outnumbered by pigs by 1 million, right? Humans to pigs. So what do you guys see? Like, is there kind of a short sort of synopsis of what kind of work you guys do to help protect the water from factory farming?
Sure. We're fortunate, I guess, in the Catawba Basin that in North Carolina there is only one hog farm. In South Carolina there's less than a dozen. So in our basin we are less concerned about hog farms. We deal a lot with poultry. There are over 1,000 poultry farms in our basin, and those have problems. Hog farms are actually one of the worst environmental. So if you're on the eastern part of the state, they're everywhere. There's thousands of them. I think the average hog farm is around 8,000 hogs, somewhere around there. I think they get up to around 16,000. But the environmental issues we deal with are going to be from the waste. So hogs produce 2 to 4 times as much waste as people, and you crowd them in there, that is a lot of waste. So what they do is they store it in unlined lagoons. That's the cheapest way to do it. So you basically dig a hole in the ground and you keep putting it all there and you add some water. And it just reeks. And whenever you get a rainstorm or any event, it can flood and then it goes into our waterways. So within that waste, it's essentially fertilizer plus biological contaminants. So the big fertilizer issues book around here are going to be ammonia and nitrate. Those are often limiting factors in a river system. So whenever you add those, we get a big algal bloom. Then once the algae uses up all the nutrients, it will die, sink to the bottom, and then the bacteria go to work, they break it down. In that process, they take all the oxygen out of the water. So when you get a fish kill, that's usually 9 times out of 10, that's what's happened. You can have a bunch of fertilizers go into the water, algae grows, dies, gets eaten up, and then all the oxygen is taken out. So in the Neuse River, they'll have several fish kills every year. We have Hurricane Matthew come through. It was terrible. They just had all of the hog farms were flooded. There's a lot of them. So that's the issue we really look at, is that the waste management. That's almost all the environmental issues.
Right. And do you feel like the state does any kind of an adequate job in regulating how people deal with factory farmed waste? Is it really just kind of a free-for-all? I mean, it kind of sounds like it just dig a hole and funnel it in there.
So with dairy, cattle, and hogs, they are at least permitted. So you have to have like a permit, and there's a map of where all the farms are. And they're supposed to be checked on once or twice a year. That the state is I don't want to talk too bad about them, because there are a lot of people in that organization that try very hard, and they do their best. They're generally underfunded, understaffed, and cannot possibly get out to all these sites, even if they wanted to. Also, our Department of Environmental Quality is within the executive branch. So every 4 or 8 years, they have a new person in charge that has new prerogatives. So it does become a political issue, unfortunately.
Interesting.
With poultry farms, they've actually kind of lobbied hard enough to that there is not a registry of their locations. So part of the work that we do with the Waterkeeper Alliance is we do flyovers. And so the only reason we know how many dairy farms are in a watershed is because we actually physically fly over them and take pictures and count them.
Well, you have to do that work yourself.
Well, I don't, thankfully.
Well,
Sam does.
Your buddies, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, considering that falls under the purvey of the executive branch, Governor right now is Roy Cooper. He likes to tout the environment. Email him, call his office, email his office. Bug him.
Yeah.
Let's
Hold
get
him to his
something
word.
done.
Hold him to
I
his
mean,
word.
yeah, really,
Sure.
let's hold him to his word,
Love it.
because that's something that he promises. It's not the governor who didn't listen. This is the one who's supposed to listen.
That's
So
right,
let's
yeah.
hold him up.
Great. It's good.
Last thing I'll add is, it's funny, the pig is the same, but its utility controls how it's treated. So in factory farming, it's treated in a certain way, but in medical research, it's treated in a very compassionate, ethical, extremely highly regulated way. We were holding a course to teach other doctors how to do operations on humans who get injured, and part of that course was to learn how to do it on something that's alive before you do it on a human, so that if my brother or sister comes in, at least I know how to fix a hole in the heart before. So the amount of paperwork that one of my colleagues did, who is a hardcore meat eater, it was just pages and pages and pages of regulations and control and daily vet visits and ethically comfortable locations. The pigs have to be in a herd because they're not comfortable more than five or six in a group. So it's extremely well regulated in medical research and training, but not so in farming.
Right.
And I think there's some schizophrenia here in us as a society to say, if it's the same pig, we should probably treat it the same way in both uses of the pig.
Absolutely, and even Bob says that. He's like, I think of pigs as two different things. It's absolutely schizophrenic. Yeah, I would agree.
So I recently read an article about lab-grown meat and a recent small little breakthrough in there, and say that this became mainstream and it was used to produce meat just worldwide. Does that solve your ethical issues? Does that solve your meat eating issues? What do you think about that?
Does anyone mind if I take this one? Okay, so the question was about lab-grown meat, and so everyone has an idea, basically you grow meat without the animal. And so the question was, does that solve the ethical issue of eating meat? And this is, it's highly debated in all communities, but from an animal welfare perspective, I would say absolutely. I am all for that, right? So if we can grow meat and we can give people what they want and we can meet consumer demand without harming a single animal, or I guess without harming many animals, I would be all for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Technology and innovation always leads to betterment. Most of the time leads to betterment. The issue is many times, from a healthcare standpoint, consuming large amounts of meat is still not good for your body, the meat-based protein. And it may not necessarily be the meat itself, but there are other things that are in the meat. If it's not grown in a proper, clean, fresh environment, even if it's grown in a petri dish, other things grow in there, and it may not be the best for you. So the age-old thing, diet and exercise, is kind of the thing that I would say. But as far as from an ethical standpoint to reduce animal suffering, yes, please sign me up.
Yeah, I think looking at it ethically, from what I have read and researched and what Evan has kind of informed me with is, like a chicken breast basically could be grown from a feather, from the DNA used from a feather. So ethically speaking, personally, I have vegan friends that are like, yeah, I'd eat meat. I'd eat the meat if it was lab grown. Personally speaking, for me, it's been so long, I have no taste for it whatsoever. I've had meat accidentally served to me and I almost just spit it out, threw it up because I could immediately tell something wasn't right. So for me personally, I don't think it's something I would do. I would not fault someone for doing that. But I do think, ethically speaking, it solves a huge issue just in the amount of animals that are dying in the world that it would cut down on.
Absolutely.
And the amount of animals that needed rescuing.
For sure.
Yeah, so growing meat is a super inefficient way to get calories. Just going up the terrific scale, you're losing about 90% of that energy. Just you could fed people with that grain versus feeding a cow, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then the issue that we look at often, because we're a little water biased, is the virtual water or the hidden water, so the amount of water that goes into making your product. So certain products are more water intensive than others. Milk is arguably one of the most water intensive products. So it's about 800 gallons of water go into making every gallon of milk.
Wow.
So if you're in an area that's water needy and you're having a bunch of dairy cows on the area, that's not a great use of your resources.
Good to know.
So I know that at least 3 of you work on stuff like this. So if I live around here and this is neat to me, what could I do to plug in beyond not eating pigs?
That's a good question. How does he get involved? How do we get involved?
Yeah, how do you get involved? There are many different ways that you could get involved. I'm gonna put a little plug in there right now. That on Sunday, the Humane League launched a massive campaign in the New York Times. We kicked it off with an ad to launch a campaign against McDonald's. So as one of the largest corporations in the world, McDonald's has the great ability to change animal welfare standards. And so if we can get them to change, right, it would be a huge net positive for animals. So if you would like to get involved with that campaign, we are having a campaign kickoff party on April 12th, and that will be at Resident Culture. I'm pretty sure Cineholic's going to be there, so if that's the only way to get you out, then that they'll be there. And there will be actions that you can take there, and then there will also be actions that you can take every single week to help that campaign out and to help animals. And then the Humane League also does, we focus on 3 main things: outreach, education, and corporate welfare campaigns. So, if you're interested in any of those things, there's a place for you. And you can talk to me afterwards. You can grab my business card up there. Lots of ways that you can get involved.
Also get involved in the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation, but this is a Humane League event, so
How polite.
Oh no, I think you should totally plug that. So I've actually, with 2 different salons that I've been with, we've done fundraisers for Catawba Riverkeeper, and they do amazing work. He may not say it, but I will. And keeping, this is our water supply. This runs through Charlotte. So it is important, and yeah, if you live here locally, definitely check them out. I don't know the website, but I'm sure he does.
it's CatawbaRiverkeeper.org. It's pretty wild.
And I will absolutely shamelessly plug us too. We're about an hour and a half away. We have a volunteer work day the 2nd Saturday of each month. And that starts at 11 a.m., usually goes to about 3 p.m. It's about 2 hours of work and basically 2 hours of partying with the animals and giving them treats and giving belly rubs and having fun. What's that?
That's super lovely.
Yes,
Gotta get down to one
and
of
they
those.
love people, they love meeting people, they love visitors. When you have 200 animals and there's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us that work with them on a daily basis, it helps to have you guys come visit because we can't individually give a lot of attention to each one of these animals every single day, as much as we try, trust me. So, it's great if you guys come visit, but cottonbranch.org, COTTONBRANCH like the tree, .org is our website. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. You can tap in any of those ways to find our volunteer groups. We need adoptive parents for miniature pigs. We need foster homes desperately for miniature pigs. FYI, they are considered domesticated pets in Charlotte, no different than a dog or a cat.
Awesome.
What's your thoughts on the transition process for farmers and their pigs should they decide to get out of the industry? How can they do that ethically and do that for the pigs?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer to that, right? I think that's what this film, it goes through the last year of Bob, raising pigs, and that's the moral dilemma that he has at the end, right? He says, I've got 200 pigs, and he doesn't want to kill them anymore, but he can't afford to keep them. They're expensive, and sanctuaries, they don't have room for them. They're, the Cotton Branch gets a call for a pig once a day, and that's just in a little town in South Carolina. So I'm not sure what the solution to that would be.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we run into pretty frequently. Yesterday, we got a call, for example, from someone who's been breeding pigs, and basically they've lost control of the situation. They can't sell them anymore. They've been, which most breeders don't, they've been taking them back when people can't handle them. So they need somebody to take all of their pigs. We're at capacity. And when I say that, we have room. We are at capacity when it comes to budget. And this is the existence of most sanctuaries out there right now, is if it's not a room issue and a space issue, it is a budget issue. And it's a difficult thing. If Bob had called us and said, I have 200 farm pigs and I want to save them, we have 200 animals total.
Are there sanctuaries that could take that number of pigs? I mean, that's just huge.
Oh boy, this is a hairy question. There are definitely some sanctuaries that have hundreds and hundreds of acres. There are definitely some sanctuaries with budgets in the tens of millions of dollars. These sanctuaries do not allot a large amount of that money sometimes to rescuing animals as much as they do to advertising, paid marketers, etc. Most of your grassroots sanctuaries like us, we don't have paid members. We're directors, we're unpaid. We have 2 paid people in our sanctuary, and that's barely paid, and they are our farm manager and another animal caregiver, so we have 2 animal caregivers. The rest of us are volunteers. Most of your sanctuaries do not have the funding for this, but yes, to answer that question, yes and no. There exist sanctuaries that are large enough and have the room for this. Most in the Northeast, excuse me. But would they take them? Obviously not. He found a home for 8.
Yeah.
So, one of the greatest resources that I've found for situations like this is honestly Esther's Army, because they seem to get the word out better than anyone else. Like the breeder, for example, that's the best advice we can give her, is to try to reach the most people as possible, so that perhaps they can get placed in individual homes.
Right.
That is something that we've seen, where maybe we took 2 of Bob's pigs, and our friend Anne Marie in Virginia takes 2 of Bob's pigs, and our friend Mandy in Atlanta takes 2 of Bob's pigs. And so we do work together. That's something we've worked hard on, is forming an alliance of a lot of different sanctuaries where we can try to absorb, because we've dealt with 3 failed sanctuaries in the last 3 years, and we're talking about 200 animals.
Right.
And we found homes for all of them as a community.
Amazing.
So I think, this movie does a great job. I think the ethical dilemma is, okay, all of a sudden I had an epiphany and I need to stop doing this right now, but I don't have a way to stop doing it. And I think a great answer is scale down, incrementally scale down. So if you're having a question in your mind and saying, you know what, I don't want to give up meat completely, scale it down, make it a meatless Monday, or a meatless Monday, Tuesday, or on weekends, and see how it goes forward. So, the pig farmer, he scaled down. Individually, we can scale down and make small change. It'll be easier to do it slowly than all of a sudden to wrap it up. So that's how we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's it for tonight. And just thank you guys so much for coming with an open mind and being here to see this beautiful film and supporting the Humane League in that. And we hope to see you at the next one, for sure. So thanks, guys.